Thank you for being here today. Really appreciate it. This is an interesting time. I've got two books in publication at one time. The Why Israel Can't Wait, which we originally did as a electronic book, and the demand for it was so great we published this paperback. It's on the coming war with Israel and Iran, between Israel and Iran, and it won't be the subject today, but it's unusual to have two books in print at the same time, and we considered it a very successful endeavor to experiment with what electronic books are going to be, because we're convinced electronic books in the future are going to be a major force in publishing, and I certainly want to participate in that, and so does Simon & Schuster Threshold Editions. Also, what we're going to talk about today is America for Sale, which is in the first week of sales. We just got notified it will, on November 1st, be on the New York Times best-selling list, debuting at number 11. So we're very pleased with the success of the book, and thank you for coming out today. We'll have about a half an hour I want to present what the book is about, and then we'll take some questions from you at the end of that time. I wrote America for Sale really as a clarion call for action. The whole idea is to understand the circumstances that are going on right now in terms of the compromise of the United States sovereignty by what's happening to the dollar with deficits, but yet to be positive. So the last third of this book is solutions, what we can do, as the subtitle says, fighting the New World Order, surviving a global depression, and preserving USA sovereignty. So the themes of this book at the last third are to give solutions and a call to action for how we can organize our lives, how we can organize politically in order to fight back to say no to a global New Deal. Now, to get everybody's mind around the idea of America for Sale, I like to start it this way. We currently have, on page 24 of the book, I document we've got about a 65.5 trillion with a T negative net worth. Now, what that means is that's according to the Department of Treasury's own statistics. Once a year, the Department of Treasury does a gap accounting, and David Walker, who was the head of the Government Accountability Office, actually resigned in 2008 and went on a wake-up tour, alarming people, telling people essentially that if we did not deal with the financial crisis in these unfunded liabilities, the United States was going to face a very severe financial crisis and a danger to the dollar. Now, as I point out, the Social Security Administration, Medicare and Medicaid already have trillions of dollars of negative unfunded liabilities. And the Social Security Administration very quickly is going to go negative on a cash basis, which means that the money coming in is going to be less than the money going out on a current basis. Why? A lot of people, baby boomers, age 62, are going to retire early. Many of them can't find jobs. And also, with fewer people employed, with the recession, the unemployment, Social Security revenues are down. So now we're borrowing. President Obama is saying we're going to borrow $1.4 trillion in 2009 just to keep the federal budget going. Going to be borrowing $9 trillion over the next 10 years. Now, that means we'll be doubling the national debt of the United States from the time the Republic was created in the next 9 years. And that's an unsustainable amount of borrowing, especially when we're so heavily dependent on China to buy the debt. Now, to get a full idea of what I mean by America for Sale, and you can see the image that we put on the cover of the book, which is the tag of America as a sales tag, with the little ribbons you can tie it onto it, something to be sold with the barcode. And so I'm saying with the Social Security checks, maybe we ought to, in starting printing the Social Security checks, put at the bottom, paid to you courtesy of the government of Communist China. Because if China wasn't buying our debt, we couldn't pay the Social Security checks or the Medicare or the Medicaid unfunded liabilities. In fact, maybe we ought to go a step further. Maybe we ought to just outsource the Social Security Administration to China. Since we're outsourcing so many millions of jobs, we can eliminate the middlemen. China could do the administration of Social Security cheaper, right? They have cheaper labor. They can do this cheaper. And we don't have to pass the money through Washington to send the checks to the Social Security recipients. Let's just fund it directly from China. Well, see, this is the problem. And as I document in the book, China is saying increasingly that they do not want to accept trillions of dollars of U.S. debt accumulating. China's already got $2 trillion of U.S. foreign exchange reserves accumulated, which is the most any country's ever had in the history of the world. And China is concerned, about 80% of those assets are in dollar assets. China's concerned they're going to end up holding trillions of dollars of dollar assets that are going to devalue, because nobody has ever in the history of the world printed money like this without having the negative consequences of hyperinflation, the dollar devaluing, and China is fully aware of that risk. Now, with China saying that they want a solution to this, the plan has come forward from Robert Mundell, and I spent an entire chapter of the book describing Meet the Globalists. And I point out who the globalists are, going from Henry Kissinger, a quote in the beginning of the book, who wrote a column earlier this year in the International Herald Tribune where Henry Kissinger said Barack Obama as president ought to use this economic crisis globally to create a new world order. And he published those words. The idea being, if we have a global economy, we need a global governance system. In other words, what Kissinger and other globalist economists are calling for is a system where the United Nations, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the World Trade Organization sets the rules for the international economy, not the U.S. government. Our economy would be dictated to by these international organizations with the rules set for us. So one of the globalists I point out is Robert Mundell. Now, Robert Mundell is an economist at Columbia University, but he's not just simply an academic. Robert Mundell is credited with being the father of the euro. And Mundell has been writing, he won a Nobel Prize in 1999 for arguing that currencies have to have an optimal currency area. In other words, a nation state like the United States is not an optimum currency area in Robert Mundell's view because it's not a trade area. Europe, with the European Union, is a trade area, hence the euro is justified in Robert Mundell's version to be created. Similarly, in the United States, the idea would be a regional currency to precede a one world currency. Well, China's apprehension with the dollar has rushed ahead the plan with the one world currency. China's idea, advanced by Robert Mundell, is that we would have the International Monetary Fund utilize these special drawing rights, a facility at the IMF, to be funded so they could be an alternative to the dollar to settle international trade. Now, again, it's not an academic idea. As I point out in America for Sale, at the G20 meeting that was just held in London in April, the final communique, which President Obama agreed to on behalf of the United States, was to fund $250 billion to the International Monetary Fund to create special drawing rights as an alternative one world currency to the dollar in international trade. Why one world currency? Because the International Monetary Fund is an international organization. And as it issues these special drawing rights as a currency facility, it bypasses all the currencies of the individual nation states in order to hold the foreign exchange reserves that result from international trade. Those